Recording. All right, news picture story. A multiple picture entry of a story, series, or sequence of a spot or general news event. And for all picture story categories, there's some rules. A brief overview should precede the caption on the first image of all picture story entries. Unless otherwise noted in the category description, all picture story entries should include at least 3 images, but no more than 12. And like I said, we've gone through all the stuff and all the entries meet that criteria. So you don't have to worry about that, but I just want to let you know that that's what it is. Okay, let me start with this. Okay, you can see the context sheet.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Bob, are you
I'm good?
Okay, great. So we won't vote again in this round. This is going to be just like the single categories. We're going to go through everything. I'll read the summaries, and then we'll go back through, and then that's when we'll do our voting. Okay. Hamilton Township High School held graduation for the class of 2021 at Fortress Obetz on Sunday, May 23rd, 2021. New Marshfield, Ohio is a small town of around 300 residents nestled among the foothills of the Appalachians. In decades past, New Marshfield was a bustling town as trains brought coal from the mines in the surrounding area to Cincinnati and beyond. However, first the train stopped, then the coal mine shut down, and finally the tracks were pulled up. Now, like the tracks, a hotel, gas station, stores, and restaurants are all gone. In a town where the primary asset is quiet, a variety of small communities find ways to spend their time when not commuting to Columbus or other nearby cities for work. Carrie Harris cries as casket bearers prepare to place her daughter Kaylee's body in a hearse for the ride from John Glenn International Airport in Columbus, Ohio, to a funeral home in Springfield, Ohio on Tuesday, May 11th, 2021. Kaylee Harris was an Army MP stationed in Anchorage. She alleged that she was raped by a colleague, an airman, in January shortly after coming out on social media. Harris's family believes the rape was also a hate crime directed at her because she was lesbian. She printed a suicide note on May 2nd, 2021, and was found with a gunshot wound to her head. While the country watched the verdict being handed down in the murder trial of Derek Chauvin for killing George Floyd Jr. less than a year before, Ma'Khia Bryant, a Black teenage foster child, was shot and killed by a Columbus police officer when she lunged at another girl while wielding a knife. A large part of the community saw the all too familiar reality. Another Black person was shot and killed by police in Columbus. There were 2 other killings of Black men by area police in the year before, both leading to officer arrests. This time, it was a 16-year-old foster child in the care of the state. While authorities pointed at footage to declare the shooting justified, many people voiced what they saw to be a failure to de-escalate by police and a failure by the state to give Bryant the support she needed as a foster child. Friends and family of Maxton Soviak filled the home stands at Edison High School's Charger Stadium to say goodbye to the Navy corpsman who was killed in a suicide bombing while assisting in the evacuation of Americans and refugees from Afghanistan. Toledo Fire and Rescue battle an apartment fire on the 5900 block of Cresthaven Lane on Wednesday, March 31st, 2021. The fire began in the attic and quickly spread throughout the rest of the apartment building due to high winds. Residents were safely evacuated and there were no reported injuries. On April 21st, V Project and the city announced a new program where community members, mostly from the movement, are going door to door helping residents get scheduled for a coronavirus vaccine or give them information on how and where to receive the vaccine. The morning began with an unsettling feeling in the pit of my stomach, unsure of what we would see 30 miles down the road. Anxieties built up as attempting to imagine destruction is impossible to do. This is followed by fear of what the social climate was like from those who had lost everything. An hour was spent walking, just walking, taking in the destruction caused by the tornado. There are degrees of separation between what one can understand about experiencing the tornado, the feeling of loss felt by those who lost loved ones, friends, pets, everything. The feeling of helplessness being inside your house with the walls being torn away around you, and the only thing left standing is a bathroom and a bookcase. The feeling of sorrow walking down the damaged streets, the feeling of compassion felt by those who helped Mayfield in any way they could. All right. So those are our 8 stories. And I just want to make sure everybody knows that. So we'll go through this, we'll vote, we'll do one to keep it in and advance it. And if at any time, I'm going to leave the contact sheet up when we vote, okay? And then if at any time there's a picture before we vote that you say, I want to know I want to see a specific caption on a specific picture, we can do that. That's totally fine. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. All right. So we'll just start with this. And then what I'll do as I to kind of keep things clean on the contact sheet, as you vote, no matter what it is, in or out, if it's out, I will close it. And and I will mark it over here as green or red on the list so we know what's what, okay? All right, so again, one to keep it in, and we'll start with this one.
Out.
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 In.
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 Out.
Out.
You say out, Tim? Okay, I can't hear you for some reason. I don't know if your microphone's not working.
I don't hear him as well.
Hear me either?
Yeah, there you go.
Out.
You're good.
Okay.
It must be maybe you unplugged your headphones and it was still looking for those.
That might be it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're good now. All right, so this one's out, correct?
Yes.
All right, out. Go away, screen. My little toolbar popped down. Sorry about that.
In.
In.
Out.
Out.
Did you say in or out, Tim? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Out.
Oh, okay. Out.
Yes.
Out.
In.
In.
In. All right. So down to 5. And now what we can kind of do is This is where we can talk about specific stories. You can look at stuff specifically. We can pull captions. We can look at everything big one more time if you want to do that. It's kind of up to you guys.
I mean, I'll start the bidding off. I mean, I do think the Ma'Khia Bryant story and the tornado story are the two I think that are the strongest. And then it's kind of trying to figure out, at least from my standpoint, the Army suicide, the small town, and the apartment fire.
Mhm.
You know, in terms of just, you know, quality of each individual image, as well as like thought to the edit. That's kind of where I'm starting from.
Do we want to look at, I know, Kathy, you kind of pulled out these other two stories, and maybe we can kind of set those aside for a minute, if that's okay with Tim and Angie, and
Yep.
look at these three, and we can look at them big if you want to do that for a little bit longer. I can make it 5-6 seconds or whatever if you want to actually look at each image big by itself. And we can pull captions too if you want to do that. It kind of depends on how you guys want to direct this.
I do think seeing those three big would be helpful, for at least for me.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Why don't we do that? Let's do that. And then do you want to look at each picture for like 5 seconds, 6 seconds? Do you want a little more time with each one?
5. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fun.
5. Okay. There's this one. Okay. And this one. Okay. So there's those three. Do you want to look at the other two big also?
Sure.
Okay. And this one. There we are.
I really enjoy the new Marshfield story. At the same time, I wonder if this is more of an essay than like a picture story. For me personally, like if I see like an essay in like a picture story category, I don't mind, because I generally like the idea of having just like good storytelling regardless, as long as it's cohesive. But I didn't know if that's something that y'all notice or pay attention to.
No, I mean, for me, I recognize one having an arc and one not having an arc. And, oftentimes I find in a lot of the contests that are out there that there's very few stories and most of them are essays, because I think part of it is just a product of our time, right? There's nobody being allowed to spend months and months and months following a subject through, an evolution, right? So oftentimes you are doing these more essay stories. I agree. I think I like a lot of the pictures in here. I get a real sense of this community from these images. I think there was some editing decisions here that maybe could have helped the story. Two torso shots or crotch shots are not there's got to be a real reason for it, or a different version of that. They're always a little off-putting to me, unless there's I see the blood, I see the cigarette. Maybe it was just the blood in the cigarette and not the whole front of the guy. I don't know. That's just me. Maybe there's a caption I should read on the third image.
This one?
Yeah,
Yeah, let's read it. Let me pull it up here.
it looks like a church, maybe.
Yeah. Pastor Adelbert Weingartner, Sr., prays with Joey Henry, 13, at the front of Faith Baptist Church during a service before Henry walks around to collect money on Sunday, February 21st, 2021. Weingartner and his wife turned portions of the closed down school in New Marshfield into a church after their former church was torn down. The school halls now hold memories of the many years of Sunday schools and services. On one wall, a canvas is filled with painted hands of children who now, as adults, bring their own sons and daughters to services.
One thing my first boss, Nancy Andrews, said to me was never describe another picture that the judges might want to see, because immediately I was like, I want to see those hands.
Yeah.
She's very wise.
I agree with those two images being a little too similar, but
Mhm.
the rest are pretty attention grabbing, like the guy at the cemetery taking a selfie or something. What's he doing there?
Bruce Cheney tries to get reception on his phone after he finishes digging a grave to check the weather and see if he will need to cover the hole from rain on Monday, March 15th, 2021. Cheney has worked for the Waterloo Township since 2004 and has looked after the New Marshfield Cemetery ever since. He said he helped bury his mother and father during his first year on the job.
Wow. Good caption too.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, I'm going to retract on the tornado story. I felt like there was too much distance. Everything felt a little farther away and not as personable as what we're seeing in the small town story.
Yeah, there's a lot of variety in the New Marshfield one. And I would like to see some closer faces in the tornado one.
The apartment fire photo, I think it suffers from, I think, the same thing. You know, there are a lot of pictures of firefighters that are about that size with lots of fire. And I would have loved to seen a face or two. It looked like something they battled all day long. You know, a sooty faced firefighter. I don't mean to, go to old tropes, but something for some visual variety. Everything is at about the same distance, except for we get the Gawker photo of the kid, which I think is a nice picture. It's there's no variety throughout the images that takes you kind of on a little bit of an emotional journey.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay. So we haven't talked about this story or this one yet. Is there anything about either one of these that you want to discuss or get clarification on?
The grief story, that one is tricky because, like, based on the description that was read, I feel like I was looking for more pictures than what I was seeing. And like there are a couple of good singles, but I don't know if there's enough in here to really make it a picture story.
Yeah, it's more surrounding the event of the funeral. I would like to maybe see the mom, after the funeral and the quiet moments that happen when everybody leaves.
In a way, yeah, because it's like so much of the focus, I think the mom is in 4 of the pictures. So then I start to wonder, it's like, is this more so pertaining to like how like the mom is reacting and like, I guess, trying to work through this really grieving and traumatic experience? Because if that's the story, then I would like to see more after afterwards, or even like if you can't go back, and you've been able to get the access to work more with the mom throughout that day, there's a whole lot that you can do. There are a lot of really subtle moments or instances that you can show how she might be, working through this really tough time. But I think the description was more so about the service member who was killed, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, I can pull up the first caption where that would go.
The horrific story. There's I think too, you don't need image 2. I think it's a messy image. You've got the stuff over in the, I'm using my mouse like you guys can see it over here, but I don't know if there's something that could have been worked in the window of the hearse and the American flag, but seeing the Delta, which it looks like the catering things and all of that is just not clean. But this next photo is, I think, it's obviously it's this wonderful moment. It's nice and clean. Maybe you needed the plane, but I don't know. It could have been shot maybe a little different, like a little cleaner. And I'm guessing the photographer was like confined to a certain spot, so they were stuck making that angle. But we're all kind of in that moment where we're often forced into the position where you have to say, okay, I'm trying to make an informational picture, but I have to make an informational picture that is beyond being purely informational. And if you go back to that second image, compositionally and all that, there's a moment, but there was maybe something that, I don't know, photographer's probably like, whatever, lady.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah. It's like you've got to, we're challenging, at least editors are, to say, okay, I need something more than just information. It needs to be compositionally easy to read and move the story forward. And I would agree wholeheartedly, like seeing the mother, in her daughter's childhood bedroom or whatever, after the fact, would be amazing. And I oftentimes, when we're in a more documentary story, having a portrait kind of stops me a little bit, and wondering if this could have been shot something that didn't feel so much like a portrait, because you have all these nice moments in documentary style, and then it's like portraiture. And I don't know if we need to see the mother again when we see her like crying and placing her hand on the casket and presiding over the funeral. It kind of takes me out of the flow of the story a bit.
Okay. Is there anything else we wanted to discuss?
Well, I think we could look at the Ma'Khia Bryant story again, because there were images that we've seen that were one that we awarded, as well as ones that at least made it into another round, that are worth kind of discussing how we feel about the story.
Well, the photographer definitely spent some time on this, and went to many different places, it seems, from the day that the event happened and then to the aftermath of how the city reacted, and then to the funeral. You can tell they covered a lot of bases for this story.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely well documented. I wish that I think in terms of like visual variety, just to be able to get more, I guess, tighter frames here and there. A lot of this feels like it's like kind of 24 to 70 or like 70 to 200, but like more on like the wider end of things.
Yeah.
So just like, these are the kind of assignments that, again, like, not everybody has a 3 or a 400 that they can take with them on an assignment. But if you have the access to that, or you do just have a 70 to 200, but you're zooming with your feet, or or figuring out ways to crop tighter, that you can find little details here and there that kind of do give us more variety, that gives us more of a better flow, as opposed to, I think like the third, fourth, and fifth pictures, again, are kind of in like the same sort of like medium length sorts of things. But otherwise, this is very well documented.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm all done. Sorry.
I was going to ask the caption on number 2.
Investigators work at the scene where a Columbus police officer shot and killed Micaiah Bryant in Columbus, Ohio on April 20th, 2021.
Yeah, I wondered if that woman was maybe a caseworker for the state adoption agency or foster care, and not just straight up investigator. If you can open that image again.
Mhm.
Again, it's that informational picture, that's center weighted, and I don't know, a lower angle, using the police tape to be a graphic element. To Tim's point, maybe there isn't another lens option here, but trying to a little more compression to the lights that are in the background. Just making not just showing me what something looks like, but trying to kind of show me what something looks like in a more compositionally sophisticated way.
Even on a picture like this, where you have like the tape going like directly through the middle, I think I mentioned like Hail Marying at some point earlier on, but that's a situation where you see that you have all of like the trucks and the police vehicles in the background. If you throw the camera up and down, then you might have the tape at like the lower third, and then you might be able to make that scene look a little bit bigger, and then the caseworker and the officer next to them, maybe they do take up a little bit more space, while also giving a little bit like more like length or depth in the frame, because then everything has space, everything has a place, but they all work together to give us that general view sort of picture.
Okay.
But overall, I do think, for a news event that was unfolding in that community, the photographer did a nice job of capturing a variety of different reactions, in moments within this story. It was probably a week or so of unfolding, because from the, essentially from the scene from the incident to her funeral. And the edit, I think, it has a nice arc too, which is helpful in kind of being able to relay what was happening in the community.
Okay. Yeah. Do you want to move to 2 to keep it in and see if that kind of takes, kind of sees where everybody's thinking for what there might be for a consensus?
Yep.
Okay. So we'll start with this one, 2 to keep this in.
And
In.
Okay.
In.
You're in, Tim?
Yes.
Okay. And Kathy?
Yeah. Yeah.
In?
In.
In.
In?
I'm still in on this. I think there's some really nice moments in this story.
Okay.
In.
Okay. In?
Out.
Out.
Out. All right. So these are the ins. Are we thinking that these are all HM worthy at least?
I think so.
Yeah.
Tim? Okay. Awesome. So now we get to kind of talk about where we think things might go.
Can we look at the new Marshfield story again?
Sure. Do you want to look at it in a context sheet or do you want to see it big?
Context sheet is fine, at least for me. I don't know if anybody else had thoughts.
Good.
Yes, fine.
And his photographer obviously spent some time there, and got to know some people. And you can see there's, I don't know how much of a seasonal change there are, but it looks like there was, you know, from winter or late winter to early spring, which I really admire, you know, going back there and trying to do this story. I think one of the images that's missing for me, and I think that they tried to do this a little bit with the first image, is just a little more sense of place. You know, is there a Four Corners in this town? I don't know. Or is it really that rural, that the meetup is, you know, with the ATVs out in the woods? But I just trying to get a little more sense of the town. What does the town look like?
Okay.
You're probably like, Josh, like, okay, yes, we know you've talked it.
No. No. This is,
I agree with all of that.
the thing about picture story categories is, I'm sure you know, is that they are hard because there's a lot of information to take in. And sometimes you just have to sit there and look at it. And that's totally fine.
And it's, you know, you start like comparing, not necessarily picture to picture, but like, okay, this one's got, you know, more variety. They spent more time. There's better moments, but this one has more continuity, you know, cleaner image, whatever it might be. And then you get yourself all chasing your tail.
I mean, I can press the fact and just ask somebody what they think is their first place story. We can move that direction and put somebody on the spot.
I would love to hear from Angie and Tim though, because I feel like I've prattled on a little bit on these stories.
No. Actually, Angie, you go ahead. I've been yammering too much.
Well, for first, if I had to say, I would think the Makia Bryant story, to have been able to, you know, meet up with one of the family members, and get them in the photo, and then to have gone back for the funeral. It's a lot of effort by the photographer.
Okay.
I think if we're looking at it from like what can a picture story look like, this feels like the most complete. And yeah, to be able to do all this in what looks like a very short amount of time that takes a lot of just like, what's the word I'm thinking of? It takes a lot of tenacity, and it takes a lot of like patience, because you're probably also having to work with a lot of people on a very difficult story.
So I hear kind of two nods. Kathy, is there one of these four that you want to put in that first place spot?
No, I mean, the more that I look at this story, like there's a lot of variety. There's a lot of, there's, in terms of the edit, there's not a lot of redundancy. We've got a couple of protests type of scenarios, but they have different emotional notes to them. That doesn't make me just feel like I'm in one place the whole time. So I appreciate the photographer's effort there. So yeah, no, I think this could be number one for me.
Okay. Well, let's just vote on that. So this one for first place.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right. First place. Let me just do a really quick rename here so I know what's what. Okay. Do we have a nomination for second place?
I think the New Marshfield one, just with the variety of places and people and situations. I definitely feel like I've like been to this town now that I've seen these images. With the tornado one, there's just a lot of similar the people are similar sizes. I would have liked to see a face closer up, but there's some good moments in here too, with the truck flipped over and the kids playing soccer. But I just think the New Marshfield one just has more to say, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little more personal and intimate.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like Angie's making a nomination for second for this. So let's take a vote on it. This one for second place.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I say one thing
Yes.
to the photographer?
Yes.
Find something else from that church. You must have spent that service there. I think that there's probably a better picture from that service that is communicating something that you're trying to communicate there, but maybe in a more effective manner. And then you can keep the bloody cigarette hand. That's just my suggestion.
Spoken like a true
Good suggestion.
The editor is coming out in you, Kathy. We love it. We love it.
It never is not out. I'm going to tell you that.
I know you've been like this all day. All right. So do we have a nomination for third then of these two? Or you can do two HMs. You can do 1, 2 and HM. It's kind of what you want to do. If you think that one rises above the other, you can slide it into that third place.
I would be okay with giving them both honorable mentions, because I feel like they're both like almost there in a lot of different ways. But it's still like, it still isn't all together.
Right.
They're good conceptually, but the delivery might not be there.
I agree with that.
I can embrace that. Yeah.
Okay, so let's make that official. This for an honorable mention.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And this for an honorable mention.
Yes.
Yes.
There you go. Okay.